Okay, so welcome everyone to how to get more coaching clients. So I'm assuming that everyone here is a coach. If you're not, you might be in the wrong place. That's good. That's good. That's good. Can I ask you all to initially just to mute, just in case there is any feedback, and then if we have questions later, we can unmute. Thanks very much. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so I can show you. Okay, so can you all see that? Oh, it's there. A bit slow, but it's there. Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do a quick, in fact, I'm going to ask you now to all unmute. Now, I might do this by show of hands. That might be easier. Although, Frank, you'll have to actually, yeah, if you can all unmute while we do this bit, this might be easier. So this is what I sent out as a bit of pre-work, just so that I knew where everyone was. In fact, have I just gone by previous one? Yeah. So your challenges. So I was quite keen to know what sort of challenges resonated with you the most, because I know which couple I pick. If you haven't seen this, have a quick look now. But I'd be really interested to know which is the main one that you think applies to you. So did anyone pick number one as their main one? Just do it by show of hands if you don't want to unmute. Anyone have number two?
I have
Yeah, same. One of them.
Yeah. Okay.
I think to an extent number two, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 and 3 really. There's
2 and 3.
overlap.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah. And did anyone have 4 and 5 or 5?
For me, it's
5.
definitely 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah. It's 5. Okay, so a mixture of 2, 3, and a bit of 5. Okay.
Yeah, 5 for me as well.
Okay. Now the one that really got my goat was actually number 4. I was going into organisations, and I just felt like it was delay tactics sometimes. So it would be like go off and write as a proposal. So it started making me feel that probably 2 and 3 was relevant. You know, it's all tied in. So I hadn't either explained what I could do for them or how coaching could help, or they couldn't see the value of it. So delay tactics such as write a proposal, and I was spending hours doing this, and it was really, you know, it was getting to me. So just going on to the second one about your goals, I'd be really interested to know before we get going what your main goal would be for this session. So did anyone pick A, clients who say yes straight away? No. B, clients who immediately understand how coaching will help them? Nope. Anyone take for C, who feel a sense of urgency that you can help them?
Yeah, I think for me, C is probably one of a couple really that are relevant.
Yeah. Anyone pick D as their main one?
yeah,
Yeah, D and E for me.
A. Okay, D and E.
It's E for me.
E for you. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
D is the right approach to everything in business.
Sorry, Rob, what was that?
Sorry, D should be our philosophy for everything in business.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most of that is a kind of a mindset thing, because once you start realising that you don't have to sell something, it does get a bit easier. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that feedback. So the reason, oh, could I ask you all to mute again? Thanks. So as I said, my bugbear was going into organisations because I was trying to do a lot more team coaching. So I was doing individual coaching, and I was getting hacked off by people saying, yeah, go and write as a proposal. And I realized I wasn't putting across the value of coaching easily, or maybe getting an understanding of what they needed from coaching. So for one particular client, and this was about 3 or 4 years ago now, I was going in to see the MD of an organisation, and I decided I'd be really prepared. I was really wanting to give them the sense of urgency that I knew they'd got a problem with their senior staff. I knew that I could help them, but it was getting it across that, yeah, if I get in now, it'll be less of a problem than if you delay it and leave it. So I prepared this spreadsheet, and at the time I didn't quite know what to call it, so I just called it the matrix. And what I did is on the technique side, I listed the main workshops that I was doing at the time. So I think I took in about 9 different workshops, and I wanted to give the value of what I could do. So I thought, well, how can I put that across? And I thought, well, I've got all this feedback. I've been coaching for 15 years by then. So, you know, what have people said when they've attended one of these workshops, what they actually fed back with? So I looked through all my testimonials and LinkedIn stuff on my website, and I started to see patterns of words that related to the work that I'd done. So if I'd done something on values, then things around communication and empowerment and customer service came out as and awareness and confidence. So I saw patterns of things coming out, and I thought this can't be a coincidence. So I took this spreadsheet in to see this MD, and we get talking, and I'm asking him coaching questions to find out exactly where he's at with the team and what he's wanting. And he says a couple of these words. So I get my spreadsheet out and my highlighter pen, and I highlight a couple of them. And then he sees what I'm doing, and he takes the sheet off me, and he starts highlighting the words himself. And then he points to the one where he's highlighted the most and says, right, that's obviously the workshop you need to run for me. And I thought, well, that was interesting. So I did no proposal, got straight in there, ran the workshop, really good results, and it was the right workshop for what they needed. So I thought, well, was that just a bit of a one-off? So I then went into another organisation. I'd met an ops director of an organisation. I went in to see her and the MD. And they'd got problems with the 2 teams of work, 2 teams of staff. How could I help them? So I took this spreadsheet in again as a blank, and I gave her the sheet. So after initial conversation about, you know, what would you like to see differently? How would you like your teams to be working? I said, right, tell me what you'd like more of on this form. So she starts highlighting and highlights 2 workshops, and then just says, right, so they're obviously the 2 workshops we need you to run. And what was interesting was, I mean, as coaches, we know what, you know, a lot of people know what transactional analysis is, they know what motivational drivers are, they know what values mean. This would mean nothing to them. So whatever, you know, this technique, so it was interesting that they chose something without even knowing really what it was, but they knew what results they'd get from it. So yes, I went in and I did those 2 workshops. To cut a very long story short, what happened next was I went to a coaching event where we were sharing best practice and techniques, and I mentioned my matrix, and a few of the coaches said, well, this is brilliant, can you do one for us? And I was kind of not defensive, but it was like, well, these are my workshops, these are my words. But a couple of coaches insisted that I did something with it. So we produced the clarity cards, which I'll quickly show you what they look like. So these were the words, these are the value words or the key words from that spreadsheet. And what was interesting was I didn't realize that all coaches use the same words. So it doesn't matter what type of coach you are, all these words are relevant. And in the end, we came up with 115 words. Now, I was trying to get it down to 100, but some words are very slightly similar. So things like action and action plan and planning, they're all in there, because what is interesting is clients have a different interpretation of what these words might mean, but it is their interpretation. When I started producing this, what I hadn't realized as well was my 9 workshops was actually 9 areas of coaching. So what was happening was the words related to the area. It was almost like it turned into a diagnostic tool in the end for where you'd start with a client. So it was giving something tangible to the client to work with, so that you were coming up with the area. It was giving them something tangible to work with. So what was happening is they wanted to just carry on with that process. So the 9 areas, and this is just a sort of précis, we using it for individual coaching, and then similar areas for team coaching. It's just worded different. It's a bit more sort of corporate speak. So as I said, there's 115 cards and 9 areas, and just giving you 3 cards as a bit of a close-up here. So what the colours, it doesn't matter how many colours are on each card, because some words, so like motivation, actually appears in 5 different areas. So what you do is when you're having a session with a client, you're diagnosing how many of each colour there are, and then working with the main 2 colours. So just to give you a quick, I might do a demo. If someone's up for a demo, I'll do a demo in a minute. So if someone can think about, yeah, I'd like to actually work with something, I could do a quick 5-minute demo of how to use these. But basically, you'd take the pack of cards into a prospective client's. You'd start the coaching conversation. You'd introduce the cards. You come up with a relevant question to use, because it has to be quite specific. So you do have to come up with a very good coaching question to start off with. They select the cards relevant to that question. You make the diagnosis, provide that feedback, and then you just sit back and wait for their feedback, because it acts as a trigger. So going back and saying, right, you've got mostly mauve, and what that means is, in a very general way, that unearths quite a lot. I've had quite strong reactions from people immediately, even after about 10 minutes. I had one client who actually just burst into tears as soon as I said what colour it was and what that represented. She hadn't really gone into detail with what her issue was, but actually subconsciously she was holding back on something, and it came out straight away of what happened. And we were able to work with that, so it came out really quickly. So I think because this works on a subconscious level, what has been surprising is clients don't even notice the colours on the cards. They're so intent on looking at the words, but they're using their gut instinct. It's a quick reaction to that word. Do they need more or less of it, or is it not relevant? Now the strange thing is, because I've been demoing this just to practice, a lot of the time people have become clients when they've not even realised they wanted a coach, because I've done this with them as a demo, and then they've realised it's unearthed something, and then they've said, well, actually I need to work with you. So that's been quite astonishing. I've not even been using it as a sales tool, and it's worked as a, I've managed to sell coaching in that way. So yeah, it's quite astonishing. So that is the individual process. I'm not going to go too much into the team one, because I'll probably do that as a separate webinar. So if you're interested in the team coaching side, so that can be used either with a decision maker to find out what they need for the team, and also I've gone into organisations and used the cards in workshops with multiple people. So it's quite easy to use with a team of 16. Give them so many cards each. We've used them in different ways, so values exercises, and got some good feedback. One CEO said it was the best workshop she'd ever been to. Got staff so engaged in the process. So would somebody like to do a quick demo with me? You don't have to, but if anyone's got anything that they would like to use and you would like to unmute, just say so.
I don't mind being
You're
in
going to be our
some way.
guinea pig? Yeah.
a theoretical, just to for
Yeah.
the process. I'd like to see the process.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. So obviously I developed this tool as a face-to-face tool, but I've been using it on Zoom as well. So I can show you how that works now. So also I said there were 115 cards. So there are 115 cards, which is quite a lot, but you only have to use a subset for it to work. So as soon as you see a pattern emerging, that's it. So I'm just going to use about 30 of them for today. So Rob, what I would like you to think about is a challenge or a goal that you're working on currently with a 3-month deadline. What we've learned with these cards is if you have too long a deadline, people choose too many cards. So to narrow it down, if you can have like a month or a 3-month goal for this challenge or project that you're working on.
yep, fine.
Yeah, you got something in mind?
I'm there.
You're there, yeah. You don't have to share it, but would you like to share it?
I'm happy. Yeah, I mean the with the business we're looking to, let me use the phrase, relaunch, change of emphases, tight time scales to get to it, where we've got to have the whole website reconfigured, where it's a matter of a whole number of people coming together with different responsibilities within the project, um, and uh, and in a highly coordinated way, delivering something which is going to be acceptable. Is that all right?
Yeah, okay. So use the word acceptable.
Yep, and I have very high standards.
Okay, okay. So for this to meet your high standards in 3 months, is that a goal you
Yep.
can work with?
I mean, just we could I can interpret around the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it's actually a 3-month project which we're halfway through.
Okay, okay.
You happy with that?
Yeah, okay. So for it to meet your expectations, which I know are quite high, yeah, in that 3-month period, I'm going to show you some cards one at a time. Use your gut instinct, your first reaction to the word. So the question is, do you need more or less of this word? So both are relevant. So you either need more of it or less of it, or it's totally irrelevant because you might already have it or you don't need it.
Okay.
That makes sense? Yep.
Yep.
So do you need more of that or less of it, or is it not relevant?
More.
More or less or not relevant?
Not relevant. More. Everybody's highly energized. Not relevant.
Not relevant.
Not relevant. More. Not relevant. More. Not relevant. Not relevant. More. Not relevant. Not relevant. More. Not relevant. No, come back. More. Less. More. We want more. Oh, less. Not relevant. More. Less. We got too much. That's the problem.
Less.
Less. More. Not relevant. We've got the right number. Irrelevant. Not relevant. More. Not relevant. Not relevant. Too skilled, too confident. More. Not relevant. We're well into it.
Right. Okay. I'm going to do a quick diagnostic of that then, see if there's a pattern already. So
There's a lot of action stuff going on here.
yeah. So as you can see, I've got an example on here. So what you do then is you lay them out so that the colours are all in a row. So you can see there's a row of greens there and there's a row of mauves and so you just put all the colours. I mean, we train people how to do this, so it becomes quite quick in the end. So, and you're just looking for a pattern of the main two colours. And then if there's not one that's apparent, you just go with a few more of the colours. So, okay, we have a main colour, which is yellow. And that is about using all the resources that you've got. So you probably need to feel a bit more resourceful or look at all the resources that you've got. So this is in terms of the support or your networks, anything that you need to get the task done, basically. So you've got your goal, you're confident you can achieve it, you've got a plan, you've broken you're pretty online, you know what you're doing, and you've got the right behaviours, but you probably just need to look at a bit more what resources you need to actually achieve that goal.
It's actually, I mean, that fits because it's actually about keeping everybody focused, which is over actually now a very short time scale.
Yeah.
So I mean, the guys are brilliant. You know, as a team, we do work tremendously well together. Completely different characters, which actually coheres to be something worthwhile. But if we're going to get there, those particular attributes were the ones that we need to remain mindful about.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of feeling resourceful, is that something you need to look at? Is that something you've thought about, or are you?
Yeah, I just have to keep beating Philip up, my business colleague.
Yeah.
But the good news is he's 5'3".
All right. So yeah, it should be an
No,
easy job then.
No, I'm being very, very
I
unkind.
know.
I mean, it's interesting because there was some there which, in other circumstances, of course, I could have seen them being highly relevant. But it's just this particular project which we're in, and because the reality is, and it's slightly false, but the reality is the timescale is so tight. We've all got to be totally focused on it anyway.
Yeah.
But those words were absolutely right for it. And it's the temptation. So it said information on one of the cards.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want more information? Well, actually, me at this moment.
Well, not if you're overloaded.
Absolutely. We're trying to disseminate. We're trying to take the messages, simplify them. And the more information we get, which is in other circumstances really good, really relevant, it helps you embellish, describe the picture more broadly. At this exact moment, I need no more.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And this is a situational thing. So, you know, you can do this tomorrow and it might get a different, you know, looking at a different project or a different challenge, you'll get a different outcome.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's reusable. Yeah.
The context was highly relevant to my answers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for taking part in that. That was a very quick and dirty session, but you got the gist of it. So you can see how quite quickly you can do it. My quickest to date is 6 minutes. And that probably beat it actually. But yeah, so you can make a very in-depth, you can use all the cards if you want to. But probably the only reason I'd use that is if you were going to use it as a review, you know, actually want to measure it from session to session. But really you don't need to. So it's a very quick tool to use. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on what outcome we've achieved from that exercise. What would that, in the real world, what would we then do with that?
Yeah, so, yeah, good question. So, as part of this system, now obviously as coaches, you've all got your own techniques, ways of working, and knowing what the areas are. If I go back to previous. Oh, no. Right, I've got out of sync now because I've gone too far. You know, when I said earlier the 9 areas, so the idea then as a coach, you would have in your toolkit a tool for yellow or orange or red. So you'd be trained to know what the colours meant, but also as part of the resources for this system, we've got videos in our membership site that you can go and have a look at. So as a simple case, I think most coaches know about the wheel of life as a goal setting gap analysis tool. So if you come up with blue, you know people need a bit of a plan, they need to break down those goals. Wheel of life is a really basic tool to use. What we've done is we now signpost to over 100 techniques or coaching tools, and some are quite simple, like the Wheel of Life. We've got that in our website, so that particularly if you're a new coach and you're not familiar with, you know, working with, say, dealing with uncertainty for people, then we've got some tools in there that you can either refresh or learn about. So it's not saying that you need to use those as tools, but it's a bit of a framework, if you like.
Okay.
But you'd be trained to use this. So I run training sessions so that people are completely confident about using this as a tool. But you've got that backup. So we explore what would you as a coach use for if mauve is your main diagnosis. You know, do you do values exercises? What type of thing do you do? Does that answer your question, Frank?
Yeah, I get it. So in the case that we've just been through, what was the color that came up?
All right. So for Rob, I've got a nice tool that I use for feeling resourceful. It's actually one that I've made up, but it's in the toolkit. It's in the
Okay.
toolkit. It's part of this resources. So it's whatever you do to help your client feel more resourceful.
Okay.
So you've probably got something that would do that, or it's just a coaching conversation. You know, how would you feel if you felt more resourceful about this? You
I
know,
get you now.
what other things do you need to look at?
Okay.
Yeah. So it is down to you how you interpret it, but the colours are just guidelines, if you like.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the
Thank you.
question. Anybody else got anything to ask? Okay. So I'm just going to quickly. I've just showed this because obviously this client chose a lot of cards. But when you're doing the feedback, this is the same set of cards here, but obviously they're put in color order. So this is how you'd set them up. So you can see that there's an awful lot of reds here, and there's pinks there, and there's mauves there. So you've put them so that you diagnose it so that you can see what the main color is. Okay, so just checking on the time. So going back to the goals, I think the ones that you chose most, so it was D&E, wasn't it? So I think I mentioned about, so getting clients to buy from you rather than to sell. So as I said earlier, when I've done demos, people hadn't even realized they were looking for a coach and became clients. Because you also don't feel like you're selling a process to them. Just happens easily. And Frank's just asked a question around E, really. So gaining clarity on what coaching technique or approach to take first with a client. People like to have something tangible. So I think because coaching is such an intangible thing sometimes, what feedback I've had from people is when you can actually say, so you've come out as this particular colour, and what this means is, but what I can work with you, we can explore that using a number of techniques such as, and then you say what your approaches would be. Just, it gives the client an extra sort of hook to hang on to, and then coaching becomes more of a tangible thing. They can see what value they're getting from it, and also they can see a clear next step. So it's almost like, right, when can I sign up then? When can I start? Which kind of gives them that sense of sense of urgency as well about it. So, let's say, does anybody want me to go into anything about the team coaching side? Anyone got any questions on that? Anybody wants to unmute and ask?
Yeah. How would you use this in a team context then, Karen?
Thank you for that question. So the ways I've used it is, I'll give you just two main ways. So on the left here, this was team coaching with the decision maker. The decision maker made the decision on what we'd actually do for the workshop. So I didn't take the clarity cards into the workshop. This was a clarity card session with the MD. The MD had the question, what do you want your team to have more of or less of? So that was a question geared to him, but it was with the team in mind. That then gave me a clear indication, because this came out as mostly purple and a bit of mauve. I then did a 3-hour workshop combining what I do for purple and mauve. And that was all about behaviours and motivation. So it gave me a way of framing what I'd do for a workshop. So that made that easy. The second way we've done it is to actually take the cards into a workshop. So we didn't have that prior. So we had what the goals were for the company, and the goals were, it was an umbrella company that were bringing lots of different organisations together, and they all had different values. So it was bringing them all together, a bit of team building, and we want them to take on board the new company values. And I said straight away, right, we don't tell them what the company values are. We work on them using the clarity cards to come up with what their values are, and then we tied those back to the company values. Now, the way of doing this is to just use the positive cards. So we took out things like anger and frustration and anxiety and fear, all the words that you obviously don't want as a company value. So they just had a set of positive words to work with. We worked with 3 different teams. They all had 50 cards each. And what was nice was 5 of the words they all chose. So those 5 words fed into the company values. They then chose the 4 company values that were then given to them. They put these words under the sort of headlines, if you like. So we treated the company values as headlines, but these were the values that they were going to work with from the cards. They totally bought into it. It was a really nice process. And again, they had to agree in their groups of 6. They had to reach consensus. They all had to agree what their top 10 words were. And then we all shared that and came up with the top the top 5 or 7 that they agreed to use. So that was a nice team building event as well, because not everybody knew each other, and it was nice that there was a bit of overlap as well. So, you know, out of all the 10 words each chose, 5 were the same. So immediately you've got the buy-in there. Does that answer your question? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. There's just a few testimonials from coaches that have used them. Any other questions? Okay, so I think I will just wrap up there then. For being on today's webinar, I would like to offer a discount if you would like to book on the virtual training. Now, I usually run face-to-face workshops, but because of what's going on at the moment, I'm not doing that. So you can do this from the comfort of your own home or office. And I'm offering either a 1-hour personal training session, or you can join a 4-hour group session by Zoom. So if you just drop me a line that you'd like to take that up today, and I can give you that discount, and I can send you when the dates are going to be coming through. So probably the first one would be the end of March, but I'll be putting on a few. Now the training, I do that as a kind of try before you buy into the system. So the system is on a yearly license, and I've worked it out that it's return on investment. You only need 1 new client a year for you to make your money back, and people are getting clients, you know, quite easily using this system in organisations and individually. So any more questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I've also got the Clarity Cards Club. So if you're not a member of that and you'd like to join on LinkedIn, I can send you an invite to that. If I'm linked in to you, I might be linked into you, I'm not sure, but if I am, I can invite you to that as well. Keep you posted on other events. So thank you for joining tonight. And
That's great.
further questions, just drop me an email.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Karen.
thanks everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank
Karen.
you.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. How do